Farron, thank you.
Thank you.
The writer Yasmin Alibhai-Brown is never shy of a controversial subject, and now she's started a debate about whether Muslim women should wear the full veil. She's published her thoughts in Refuse the Veil, one in a series by various authors called Provocations. In it, she writes, "I believe strongly that cloaks, scarves and masks degrade women by regarding them primarily as sexual creatures, but severely controlled ones." She goes on to say half-naked lasses and young veiled women are an affront to female dignity, potential and autonomy. They are all marionettes in the hands of forces they do not understand. Well, in 2011, France banned the veil. Here's why two women decided to flout the ban at the time.
Whether a woman is wearing a niqab or a miniskirt or feathers on her back, it's really about individual liberty. No one has the right to dictate to others how they should dress, walk or think. It's my choice and it's my religion.
I am only carrying out my citizens' rights. I am not committing a crime. I haven't stolen, killed or broken anything. I am a French citizen and I am only exercising my rights. It's that simple.
Well, Yasmin joins me now, along with the writer and broadcaster Myriam Francois-Cerrah. Welcome to both of you. Yasmin, first of all, clarify exactly what you would like women to stop doing. Is it the full veil or is it any kind of head covering and face covering?
First of all, I'm not calling for a ban.
No.
A legal ban. I am calling for general rules, dress codes, which apply to everybody regardless, from school uniforms to what we wear to work, to what we wear when we go to court. What I'm saying as a Muslim woman whose mother and her generation threw off the veil one day in the 30s, decided they weren't going to do it, and they were backed by our imam, that the husbands hated it, that we need to think about the meaning of the clothes we wear. That's what you read out. I've made the comparison that, you know, these kind of come-hither clothes, as well as various forms of veils, define women as sexual objects who kind of create disorder in the public space. That's my one problem with it. And it really isn't personal. Some of the people I love, respect, admire, including Myriam, have made these choices. I've kind of given up the fight on the headscarf. I've surrendered in the book. I've said I've lost that one. But it is leading to children. You can now buy a baby hijab, a stretchy baby hijab. Children are big. So it took a lot of kind of courage, but I wanted to write this book to say what I needed to say.
What do you say in response to the context and the background to what has obviously brought Yasmin to her decision about the veil?
I mean, I read the book and I think that there are some very important points raised, and I share the concern with a sort of retrograde and austere vision being pushed by Saudi money, and which certainly is very intolerant, and I think you're right to raise that. My personal concern is really with the instrumentalization of this discourse by certain sections of the political scene, really to advance xenophobia, anti-Muslim sentiments. And I think in many ways the veil has come to epitomize European xenophobic fears. And this is where, although I think this discussion is very important internally within the Muslim community, and I think it's very important that there is diversity there, I'm not sure that it's the right time when we have reports coming out, as we just have, showing that a Muslim woman is 65% less likely than a white Christian counterpart to find employment in this country, at a time where we have increasing numbers of women being attacked for their visibility as Muslim women. Is this the right time to say that their visibility is the problem rather than the broader political parameters?
Fine, well, we'll discuss that in a moment, but let's just get back to the wearing of it. I mean, how do you feel when you are wearing your headscarf? Do you feel in some way that you are hiding yourself, that you're doing it because men have asked you to, that you feel the opposite of being liberated, if you like, you feel imprisoned by it?
I'm really not that interesting, so I'm not going to talk about myself for a variety of reasons, but I think there are very many studies that we can look to that show that there are myriad reasons why women choose to wear various forms of coverings, from headscarves to full face veils. And I think, of course, there are some women who have internalised and who do in fact advocate this view of women as inherently dangerous sexual creatures. But I think there are also, and people like Leila Ahmed, one of the foremost academics on this issue, point to the fact that actually there's a reappropriation of these symbols by a generation of young women who see it as a form of empowerment, others see it as a fashion trend, others see it as a form of identity politics. There are myriad reasons why women wear various forms of covering. My issue is also with the broader discussion about women's dress. I mean, yet again, we're having a national discussion about women's dress, and I think that's wholly inappropriate, whether that would be about miniskirts or headscarves. Why are we talking about what women are wearing again?
Do you see it as part of that bigger discussion?
It is part of that bigger discussion.
But you obviously have a fear, a worry about the veil that many people do have, and many people find it difficult in society and in public life, seeing women walking up and down the street. They find it difficult to deal with because they think in some way they're going backwards.
One of the things is we don't know. We don't know because we can't know how many are being pushed, forced, compelled. We can't because the voiceless ones do not talk. I've had more than one woman turn up at my door. One was fully veiled and grossly abused behind that veil. So I'm also saying that you know, we have to be able to talk about this thing as we are free to talk about the implications of some of the clothes, other clothes.
And beyond the Muslim
clothes are a very important part of everybody's lives and the messages. I don't think it's a side issue at all.
Oh, I don't think it's a side issue either. I think actually the veil, as I mentioned, has become really a focus for these xenophobic fears. But to come back to this issue of whether or not we know whether women choose to wear it or not and how that can be interpreted, the point is that, you know, Arundhati Roy's got this great quote where she says there's no such thing as the voiceless, there's only the willingly unheard. And that's the point here. I mean, even in your book, Yasmin, at one point you see a woman in a park who's in a full face veil and you impute motivations to her. You don't engage her in a discussion. And
I couldn't.
Well, you
because
could.
her eyes were masked.
I understand.
I have not seen this. It is so. Where I live, where I've lived since 1978, I hardly saw any veiled women in 1978. Muslim feminists from 1909 to the 1970s fought all over the world, including a Muslim man who followed John Stuart Mill, to get rid of this. Yeah. And now I'm being told that it is empowering? I'm sorry, I really like you. And I cannot buy that.
And I think you don't have to accept it. And I think many people don't have to accept it.
But why are so many more Muslim women wearing it then? I mean, if Yasmin is right and there weren't that many veils, why is it such a popular thing now?
Well, OK, let's break this down. Firstly, there is, I think, a problem with a teleological view of progress, so that it was, oh, we were making progress, people were removing their veils, and now we're going backwards. I think what we need is to recognise that there are multiple versions of modernity and multiple manifestations of hybrid modernity. That means that headscarves take on a different significance, or full face veils take on a different significance today in Britain than they do in Saudi Arabia or elsewhere, for a start. But also, you were pointing to, in your book, several people who I think have quite dubious feminist credentials. You praise Lord Kramer, but this is the same Lord Kramer.
I have said that in the book.
Who in this country opposes the suffragette.
One question.
Let Yasmin come back on that one.
How do women who veil voluntarily, how do they do it, knowing that their sisters in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, even here, in Canada, in Cairo, are being flogged, beaten, imprisoned, Iran, that their struggle is absolutely our struggle? What happened to sisterhood?
Well, I think the problem is,
what happened to sisterhood?
You don't acknowledge in your book that the very same women who are reappropriating the veil are at the front line of campaigning for the right to choose for those very same women.
Until all women are choosing it, until you know for sure they're not being flogged and imprisoned, you give it up.
I think you support the right to choice, actually, is what you should do.
Ladies, just a brief break. Difficult subject for politicians. We've got the example.
And a man.
But
He's still debating it very well.
Yes, they are. But should politicians, I mean, should there be rules about what women can wear, Muslim women, particularly in court, for example, or perhaps in GPs' surgeries? Should this be an area where politicians tread?
Well, in daily life, the law shouldn't ban any form of clothing. It's entirely a matter of choice, unless it's in indecent or something. But otherwise, no, I wouldn't bring the law in here. I do think, I tend to agree with Yasmin. Unfortunately, I think the growing habit of wearing it is exciting the very unpleasant xenophobic fears and suspicions that we've been talking about. I do think there are certain circumstances where you do have to insist it's removed. One is giving evidence in court. But if it's necessary to keep, if it's a legitimate religious belief, it's a cultural belief, really. I don't see how this is fixed with religion. But anyway, if it's a legitimate, deeply held belief, then you've got to screen the witness off, saying only the jury and the judge can see. I'd take all those steps. But sometimes the way in which we judge whether someone's telling the truth or not is partly a judgment of their facial expression. You can't interrogate somebody who's shielded from you behind a mask.
All right, we're going to have to finish there. Just one final word from you then, Myriam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we free women by criminalising them. If we're serious about supporting women who may be facing difficulties, then we support grassroots initiatives, including by those very same women themselves. We don't seek to marginalise them, and we don't victim blame by suggesting that the xenophobia is their own fault.
All right, Myriam and Yasmin, thank you both very much.